Hi, welcome to today's topic on where to publish your first article. My name is Pascal Calarco. I'm a scholarly publishing librarian here at Leddy Library at the University of Windsor. And I'm going to walk you through today to use the tools that the library has to help you make a selection on where you could possibly publish your first article. Maybe you're a doctoral student who is looking to start publishing parts of their dissertation. Or maybe you're an undergraduate student who your faculty member has encouraged you to take parts of your major research paper or a thesis and publish it, or even work that you've done as part of a class major paper assignment. We're going to help you find out what options you have and where you can kind of make those decisions. So we're starting off at the Leddy homepage, which is leddy.uwindsor.ca. And we're going to look at a number of tools today to help us make some of these decisions. First thing we're going to do is go to the databases A to Z link here. And if you click on that, it brings up a database list that you can either search by title if you know what you're looking for, or go through subjects, or browse the entire list. In this case, we're going to look at two tools that the library has currently to look at scholarly publishing and articles. The first is going to be Elsevier's Scopus, which is a database of journal articles from peer-reviewed journals. And even more than that, Elsevier goes through and selects journals that it considers the best in each disciplinary field. So we're going to start on the Sources tab here in Scopus. And we're going to look at a subject area of psychology. So it gives you a big long list of disciplines that Elsevier uses to index all of the scholarship that it uses in its products. And we're going to go down to psychology. And let's say that we're interested in child psychology. Now, this could fall under several different areas. This could be a clinical psychology. We might find it just in the general um, uh, category as well. Um, and behavioral psychology, so developmental and educational psychology, or general psychology. So let's just pick psychology, the broadest um, category first, and then we'll try to hone in on our topic a little bit more. I generally find if you begin more broadly and then you scale it down when you're doing searching, um, you may come across things that you didn't know about. So here in psychology, we find 1,711 results. And I'm going to do just a scan of some of these and pick a few titles that are of high value. So these ones at the beginning are of high value. We're also going to look at, say, the top 200 here first. And to begin with, let's just look at this first title, number 3. It's The Lancet, which is a British journal, and they have a journal on child and adolescent health. So it is considered number 1, the top title out of 360 titles in developmental and educational psychology. And it shows you a few of the top kind of metrics for this title on this first page. We're going to click into that to see a little bit more information on it. So the subject areas that Elsevier gives this title are psychology, development and educational psychology, as well as medicine, pediatrics, perinatology, and child health. And site score is probably the most important metric that Elsevier has as a general measure of quality and research impact. And so the higher the site score mark for a title, the more impactful and better the title is. We also see here the number of citations for that title over a 4-year period from 2020 to 2023, and the number of articles published in that same period. And that's how we get the site score metric of about 41 for this title. The site score tracker for this year is 27.3, and this is the kind of latest complete year because 2025 is still going on. So this gives us a certain amount of metrics that we can consider in this title. The years currently covered by Scopus for this title is also something to consider. So this has 8 years of coverage for this title. It's either a newer title or it's just a title that Elsevier decided to add to Scopus in 2017. And from here, we can do a search for those 329 documents, plus the things that were published in 2025. And so this can be useful in getting a sense of the types of articles that you're looking, does this feel like a place where you could publish your article? Now you're probably saying this is a great title, but it's very unlikely that me as a first-time author am going to be able to publish in such a prestigious journal. So let's go back to our sources and see what other titles we might have. We had 1711, and why don't we go back into the psychology and look at general psychology, or rather child psychology, since that seems to be a category that's a little bit more focused on what we're interested in. So this developmental and educational psychology, and let's look at that. And we're going to remove the more general category. And this brings us down to 414 results. And here's our Lancet Child and Adolescent Health that was top of the list. We have 414 results here. Now, I would look at something that begins around 50% in the site score. So we're going to go down and look at some of these lower titles. Here's one, developmental neuropsychology. We could consider that. We'll go to our next page. We're looking for things at 50% or below. Journal of Youth Development. This is also an open access title, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Advances in Autism. Perhaps that's a little bit too focused for what we're looking for in our paper. Gifted Education International. Similarly, perhaps that's a little bit too focused. International Journal of Developmental Sciences. International Journal of Education and Practice. Infants and Young Children. British Journal of Special Education. Perhaps this is a little bit too focused as well. Preventing School Failure. Children's Health Care. Maybe this is a little too broad. Intervention in School and Clinic. Teaching Exceptional Children. International Journal of Educational Psychology. Let's select that one. So we've got 4 or 5 titles now. And let's look at those. We also want to limit this to journals. And then we're going to export the items that we've selected to Excel. To do that, you have to create a free internal account with Elsevier. You can also sign in with your organization if that's available to you. So I'm here signing in as the University of Windsor. If that doesn't work, you can create an account. And I've actually already created an account. So I'm just going to sign in here. Now I've lost my source list since I've signed in, so this might be something you want to do before you even start searching. So we're going to go back to psychology, developmental and educational psychology, and we're going to sort this time by the highest percentile, and then scroll down and get to around our 50% again. We're starting to get there. Okay, if you've got into the not applicable, these are titles that don't have metrics on them, and you probably want to stay away from those. You occasionally might see titles in foreign languages. It doesn't necessarily mean that in this case all of the articles are only in German, uh, but it could certainly be the case. A lot of foreign language titles will also have articles in English, but you may want to choose a completely English title, just because that's the language that you'll probably be writing in. If you will be writing in something else, then you could pick another title in that language. Here's a clinical practice journal in pediatric psychology. Maybe that's of interest to us. It's at 49%. This International Journal of Education and Practice, which is a more general title. We'll look at that, and here's our infant and child development title again. Here's another open access title, the International Journal of Educational Psychology, Psychological Science and Education. So let's take these first few titles, and we can export this to Excel for using later. Let's just quickly look at this and see what kind of information we get when we export things. So it gives you the site score, the highest percentile, and then some of the more recent publishing in terms of citations and documents, and who the publisher is. Now, I talked a little bit about open access. Often, most journals these days, if they are owned by a commercial publisher, such as Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, Sage, Nature, those titles are going to probably require you to pay what is called an article processing fee. Now, an article processing fee typically these days is in US dollars, unless it's, say, a British journal, in which case it would be pound sterling. But many of the titles published these days are priced in US dollars. And it can be as much as $3,000 to publish the article. And this is due to the fact that the publisher wants to recoup some of the monies that it incurs to put your article through the evaluation and editorial process for publishing. Now, thankfully, we have two routes that we can look at to get around this problem. Because as a first-time writer with maybe not grant support, and you certainly don't have an extra $3,000 US sitting around to be able to throw at a publication, you want to see where you can publish this for free. So we want to limit our 414 results to display only open access journals. We'll look at that uh, first. Now, we didn't find any open access journals. So this is sometimes where you might need to go back to, I think the reason we had that is because we had some of our titles um, selected here. Let me just try this again here. So we may need to go back out to psychology and do our um, open access from there. And here we have 270 results. We'll organize these, sort these by the highest percentile, so the most impactful journals downwards. Go back again to about 50%. And 50% isn't a hard, fast rule. It's just where I think you can start looking for kind of mid-tier journals um, that are going to be more open to having uh, somebody who's not published before, who doesn't have a strong record of publication behind them. Now we want to look for our developmental and educational psychology that we were using before. Here's education. This was our title before. And educational science and education. International Journal of Emotional Education. I'm just going to scroll down to pick one more journal that looks to be around pediatric psychology or developmental psychology. We will go to the next page. We're kind of getting further down the list than I normally would want to go through, but we can also go through a number of these titles and look at the how they compare and such as well. Okay, let's just pick this Journal of Measurement and Evaluation in Education and Psychology. And since we haven't looked at this one actually, let's take a little bit closer look on this. So the subject area for this title is around education first and psychology second. It is published by the Association of Measurement and Evaluation in Education and Psychology, which you may know or you may not know. And then you can also view all the documents that this journal publishes. This is quite interesting in that this first page is a lot about using artificial intelligence in combination with student educational assessment. Um, and perhaps this is something you're interested in. And so it looks like maybe this is a good title for me to consider. On this more fulsome results page, you're also going to notice how many citations each of these articles have in the year of publication. And what you'll note is that there's usually some time between publication and when a particular article starts getting cited in the literature. So here, as we go back further into time, 2023, we start seeing more results. So this gives you some kind of indication about how many years it might be before you might see some citations of your paper. And because of the quality of this journal is relatively low, I would say. There's a lot of titles, article titles that are still getting no citations, even after 4 or 5 years. So this might be something you want to consider as well. I want to also show you another database tool which can be used in combination with Scopus's sources tool to find an appropriate journal. And that is journal citation reports, which if you search for journal citation reports here in the databases, you get to these via another tool called Web of Science. And when you bring up the Web of Science here under Products, Journal Citation Reports is up in the upper right-hand corner there. Now let's take a title that we found from our search in Scopus. I'd like to go back to Scopus here. And I'm just going to copy this title here. And then we'll go back into Journal Citation Reports and see what it tells us about this title. What other information we can get. So one thing that's helpful in journal citation reports, which you don't see immediately in Scopus, is the country of origin for the journal itself. And we see that the Association for Measurement and Evaluation Education of Education and Psychology is an association that's based in Ankara, Turkey, um, which that may be something that we would prefer to have, say, a North American title or a European title. Not to say that a Turkish title is bad or anything, um, but it might not be a title that people initially immediately come to when they're looking at the literature and considering um, research articles to read. So some of the other things that we see here, we get a lot of information on the open access component of this title. And we find out that all of the articles that were published, probably in a given year, um, were gold open access. And gold open access are those titles where we have to pay APCs. So that really doesn't help us. Let's go back into journal citation reports and use their categories to try to get some more information on um, titles that we may be interested in here. So let's go into developmental psychology that has 91 titles. And we want to limit these to open access titles. And that's a lot harder to do in this tool. So let's again just go into one here. Here's the monographs for the Society for Research in Child Development. It's a Wiley journal. It's published in the USA. It's established or at least added to journal citation reports in 1997, and it publishes 3 articles per year. And here you see the trend of is the journal becoming more impactful or less impactful? And it seemed to have a dip during the first year of COVID, and then it recovered since then. So that's quite good. We also see here which of these articles are open access and what version of open access they are. The gold open access here are about 39% of all the articles in this title. So that's not going to be very good for us either. So you're just going to have to do some searching around using these tools to find an open access title for you. There's a couple other things I want to show you. Going back to Leddy, one of the things that we've been trying to do in Canadian libraries is work with publishers to get into an eventual future where most, if not all, journal titles are available openly. That's our ideal future, where information is free, or at least information is available to all readers for them to use. And we've been doing something called transformational agreements. I'm going to go under the research and learning support, learning and research support tab on the homepage. Go into scholarship and publishing. And the first item on that page is open access publishing discounts and waivers. And we've been making agreements with commercial publishers to prepay the cost of publishing in a journal such that we license their content for the journals that a given publisher has. And we pay a little bit more money to also have the right for anybody with a University of Windsor email address to be able to publish in those journals that we have agreements with. And we've brought that into what we call an OA journal finder, where we can browse and search for all of our open access journals. And we keep this up to date as we make new agreements with publishers. Now, this doesn't have all completely open access journals. In some cases, there are discounts. In other cases, there are full APC waivers and just other kinds of um, options like diamond open access versus gold and hybrid, which I'll talk a little bit about too. So if we go back in here and look at psychology again, we'll just scroll down. Now this is going to provide us with a much shorter list of psychology. Here's developmental and educational psychology. Here's education. This comes up with 3 titles. So the Journal of Educational and Psychological Consultation, the Journal of Research in Reading, and Scientific Studies of Reading. One of these has a full APC waiver, this Wiley title, Journal of Research in Reading. Now this seems to be a fairly focused title. It's sponsored by the UK Literacy Association. So it seems to be more about education per se than psychology. So maybe this doesn't really fit our need, and we want to go back and look at some other possibilities here. Social psychology might be also be one here. Applied psychology. And under psychiatry and mental health, we could also look at a few of these: developmental and educational psychology, general psychology. These categories are taken from multiple publishing companies, and then they're all kind of mixed together. So you're going to see a little bit more diversity and variance in uh, what some of the controlled vocabulary categories are here. But looking at a few more of those categories has added to our list. And if we look at the full APC waiver, um, we see, starting from the top, the Annals of Behavioral Medicine, Counseling and Psychotherapy Research, Development and Psychopathology, Journal of Educational Measurements. There's our Journal of Research and Reading, Psychological Medicine, uh, School Psychology International, and Sexual Abuse. Now, let's say we're interested in School Psychology International. Clicking on that will take us to the home page for the title in question. This one is published by Sage, and we see here I have access to this title through Leddy Library at the University of Windsor. Now, once we have a title here, and that we know this one is uh, an open access title that we can publish in without cost, then we can go back to our other tools and find out more information on it. So if we look for the publication title, and there's our School Psychology International. And this is returning the articles that are published in there. So this can give you some sense of that. And we can also go back into Scopus. We'll go back to the home page here. And we want to look at the journal title. I think going under sources here and doing a title search, probably the fastest way to get there. So here we see School Psychology International, 3.9 site score. Sage Journal again. It's been covered for a long time, 1979 to 2025. So it's a mature journal, which probably has a broad readership, which is good. You can see the number of articles that were published in this title over time, and also when we start seeing citations. So we started seeing citations just last year, which is good. And you can also look at the types of articles that are being published in here. So say you want to consider publishing your article in this title, in School Psychology International. Let's go back to our journal page. for Sage and find out how we go about publishing and submitting our article into that. So we are in Canada. And most publishers will have really detailed information on helping you as an author submit your article to their title or titles. They're all a little bit different, but in this case, we're taken to Sage's Journal Author Gateway, and we can get all kinds of information on here. The Sage Open Access Agreements is what we have in Canada with CRKN here. Let's just click on this and see where this takes us. So Sage has an agreement with CRKN, a partnership of Canadian universities. Corresponding authors publishing an article in this package. Authors do not need to take any action to benefit from this offer. Sage will contact all eligible authors to inform them of the agreement and to invite them to Sage Journal's licensing and payment to opt in to publishing your article as open access with no APC cost. So in many cases, these publishers ask you to affirm that you want to publish your article without the APC. And if you turn that down, you may have be presented with a bill, irrespective of the fact that the University of Windsor has an APC waiver with this title. Finally, I want to step outside of this area of kind of commercial journals and look at the world of completely open journals. And DOAJ is the Directory of Open Access Journals, and this is an organization and a resource that is probably about 20 years old now, and it's a clearinghouse for finding open access journals. So if we want to go into psychology and do a search for that, we find 1,500 journals, which is pretty good. Remember that we had about 1,700 journals in the general psychology discipline with Scopus. And we have some more options here. So if we only want to consider completely English language titles, and we're just going to select a number of these Creative Commons licenses to get the maximum number of titles here. And say we would prefer to have a US. We'll see if there's any Canadian titles in here. Don't see any yet. These tend to be ranked in number of titles rather than the country itself. Here's Canada with 19. So US or Canadian open access titles in psychology, we get 65 titles, which isn't too bad. And then for, where is our psychology? They don't have a disciplinary area for psychology. It's in with philosophy, psychology, and religion, which is why we're seeing this studies in Christian-Jewish relations on our hit list. So let's look at the full list here of 65 of these. You're going to also see in this some other information that you won't in other areas. So the fact that this International Journal of Integrative Psychotherapy has no APC, no other charges, and the author retains all the rights to their article. So typically in a lot of commercial journal situations, the commercial journal is going to want you as the author to transfer your copyright to the work that you've written to them as part of their agreement to publish your work. And this is generally not a great idea. Publishing in an open access journal allows you to retain your copyright, and therefore you are the arbiter and can make decisions over what happens to that article throughout its useful life. So as you go through your career, some of these articles may become very important and seminal research in your area of study and teaching. And ideally, one should have control over your own intellectual property. Publishers would prefer that they have control of what you publish because they can then monetize your work. And that's what I mean by monetize, is make money off of, and perhaps republish an article that was published in an Elsevier title to also, without your permission, publish it in a edited monograph of educational psychology in the context that we've been talking. So there's lots of benefits to considering a completely open access journal to publish in. When you're thinking of readership, there are many in the third world who cannot afford to pay for access to these commercial journals. And commercial publishers have responded in generally having a Global South subscription price, which is far less than um, for those of us who live in, say, the G20 countries of, advanced industrialized countries, Canada, the US, Europe. Um, so they sometimes can still get access to those. Um, but if you're not attached to an educational institution, you're a student, or you're just an interested member of the public, or maybe you're a parent who wants to find out some of the scholarship around something that your child is going through, you're probably not going to have access to those commercial journals. Even if you go to your public library, you might have a hard time getting access to it from there. But you will be able to get access to things that are published without constraints, available freely on the web. Um, uh, and so you can kind of consider um, publishing in one of these titles. Um, for some of the titles that do have article processing charges, you'll be able to see what it is right here on the DOASH results screen. There's also a lot of titles that you will find that are published by universities in Canada or the U.S. And I'm trying to find. This is probably a philosophy journal. I want to find something that's specifically more psychology. This looks like a good one, but it does have APCs. Here's one that's published by Ball State University Libraries in the US, the Journal for Social Action in Counseling and Psychology. And so let's just say this is one that you're interested in. If you click on the title, you're going to get more information on the title itself, where the articles are archived in, and this is in the PKP Preservation Network, which is a good thing. This journal uses this Creative Commons license, which allows for no derivatives and non-commercial. And this is a general Creative Commons open access license. So the non-commercial and no derivatives can be useful in that it deters people from taking your open access article and republishing it in a commercial forum. They can, of course, but then they're breaking both your copyright and the licensing terms on the article, and then you would have something actionable to go after them. Let's click here through to the publisher. Yeah, here's our website. This is what I was looking for. So this is the Journal for Social Action in Counseling and Psychology. Social Action in counseling and psychology. And you will see here the recent issue, the most recent issue, which was published in 2025, January 24th, and information here on how to submit an article. I can tell already from the nature of this web page that this journal is using some open source software for publication called Open Journal Systems, which is probably the most, um, uh, yes, Open Journal Systems by PKP, probably the most widely used journal software publishing that's used for open access and openly, freely available information. So this kind of brings me to the end of our uh, discussion of how to search for and find a place for your initial research. We looked at a couple commercial database aggregations of scholarship with Scopus and Web of Science, and looked at a particular tool that Web of Science has within it called the Journal Citation Reports. And then finally, we looked at the Directory of Open Access Journals. And we looked at our own Leddy Library OA journal finder to help us make an informed decision on which journals to look at for our publishing our first article. So I hope you found this webinar interesting and useful, and you can always reach out to me if you want to if you have follow-up questions, or if you'd like me to help you work through a particular search that you're doing. You can contact me at scholarship@uwindsor.ca. Thank you so much.